Welcome to another fun-filled weekend edition of Second City Sports Zoom style.
Zoom style.
This should be an interesting one. Along with Lakeena McGee, I am Sydney Brown. Excuse me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
And you can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can go to our website, weareregalradio.com. That's WEAREREGAL radio.com to find all of our articles, features, and other fun stuff pertaining to sports, culture, and other information. And also, you can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, along with the other podcast programming from War Media by simply searching for War on Anchor. Wherever you download your podcast, iTunes, Apple, Google, Stitcher, Google Play, SoundCloud, and the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type in that search engine box, War on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor. We're also on the Tube, a.k.a. YouTube, at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. You can not only listen to us, but watch us do our thing live. Thank you for your support.
All right. Like, share, subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe, and tell your friends.
Yes. Lakeena, let's start off this weekend edition with the Deshaun Watson Sweepstakes. It's open, and who's going to be the biggest taker? Of course, if you guys have been sleeping under a rock, the NFL superstar quarterback currently employed by the Houston Texans requested weeks ago that he wants to be traded. Of course, new management is in there now for the Texans. A new head coach has been put in place. No, sorry, it's not Eric Bieniemy. We'll get to that later. It was reported by Adam Schefter of ESPN this past Thursday that Deshaun Watson will waive his no-trade clause if he's traded to the right place. Lakeena, let's start off locally since we are broadcasting live from Chicago. I've been hearing talk for the past 24 hours or so. GM Brian Pace for the Bears has placed a call that was reported also by Adam Schefter along with other teams in the National Football League as well, looking for Mr. Watson's services. Let's be realistic before I'll ask you this question before we realistically break this down. Do you think that the Bears have a chance in hell to get Watson, even so a 10% chance of getting Watson?
I mean, there's always a chance, right? I mean, with anything, especially when you have a superstar like Watson, you know, wanting to get traded. He has a no trade clause, so he'll be kind of pick and choose and refuse who and where he wants to go to. I mean, they do have a little bit of a puncher's chance, but again, do they have the capital? Do they have the money that they can match? Some people say, hey, let's just trade Khalil Mack down to Houston, get Watson. They're not going to do that. That's not equal in value. And you have and the Bears have the 20th pick. And, I think the Texans have the 12th pick, so that's not a good, trade-off. So if you want to maybe add a third rounder, maybe, maybe add a first rounder for next year, maybe. But, I'm sure Watson's going to want to go someplace where he wants to be able to win now. He's 25.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure, the Charles Leno Jr. is going to be protecting you. Do you really think that's going to entice him? Probably not. So we'll delve into it a little bit more, but what about you? Do you think the Bears have a snowball's chance and you know what?
No. But if you're Ryan Pace, you do have to place that call. I was talking to a couple of people outside of here a couple of days ago, and I told them, like, if you're Ryan Pace, you have to do your due diligence in placing a call to see what it would take to bring Deshaun Watson over to your team. The reason why the Bears are in this position is because Ryan Pace missed out on him 4 years ago. He traded up to get Trubisky with the swap from the 49ers. John Lynch is looking at him now like, you're crazy. We went to the Super Bowl even though we blew it, and you haven't been to a Super Bowl as a franchise since 2006. What does that tell you? But let's be honest here. We all know that all the mulligans for those employees for the Chicago Bears, i.e. Pace, i.e. head coach Matt Nagy, and quarterback Trubisky, who we all know that he's not coming back. Here's the thing. If you're Ryan Pace, if somehow you can pull this off, will it save your job and save face for the moment? Yes. But the pressure will be on and hotter and hotter and hotter, like hotter than a hot comb back in the day on your big mama's gas stove.
Oh,
And the reason why I say that is because you'll be expected to win, not just the division, but you're expected to win the whole thing, in which we'll break down the numbers in just a moment in terms of the salary cap for the Chicago Bears. It might not be as easy as you think. So let's just say that the Bears did pull this off. Let's be realistic, Lakeena. How many first-round picks would you ask if you're the Houston Texans?
Well, I mean, there are rumors that maybe they might just wipe the slate clean and start over. But again, if you're the Bears, do you have the draft capital to pull something like this off to kind of entice the Texans to say, hey, you know what, we got the best deal, and look, Deshaun, you can come here, you can be the guy, you'll be an assistant that you'll be comfortable with. I mean, again, you don't know what playmakers you're going to have next year. I mean, Miller, he's been, hasn't lived up to expectations. Neither has Allen Robinson, and he may not even want to come back next year. I mean, yeah, they can franchise tag him, but I'm sure A-Rob's hoping that that's not the case. You got David Montgomery. The O-line is good, but not great. Still suspect in some spots. I mean, a defense it's still serviceable, but they'll be a year older. So do you really think you have a chance to win in the next couple of years? And, I don't know if Pace is Pace and Nagy, are they lame ducks? Do you really want to play for a lame duck, brass that may not be back, the year after next season? So many unanswered questions for the Bears. So if you're Watson, is that really someplace you want to go to? Probably not.
See, here's the thing. If I'm the Houston Texans, you'll probably have to ask for 3 first-round picks. I think realistically it may take 2 first-round picks, maybe a second. Maybe you dangle out a third and add a player to balance it out. But if you're the Texans, you're definitely getting multiple first-round picks. The question is, will you get 3 first-round picks or you just stick to 2? We don't know. And you'll have to add a second-round pick, maybe even 2 second-round picks for Deshaun Watson. Like you asked just a moment ago, do the Bears have enough draft capital to do that? Let's just say real quick. Let's just say real quick. You're the Texans, Lakeena. I'm Ryan Pace. I'll give you 3 first-round picks. I'll give you a second-round pick. I'll give you Kyle Fuller.
You had me until Kyle Fuller. I'm not taking.
But he's our best defensive back on the team.
If I were the Texans, I'd hang up the phone. I'm like, nope. I'm sure that's probably, if you're the Texans brass, I'm sure that's what you want. I mean, look, if you throw in a Khalil Mack, maybe, they're not going to do Robert Quinn because that's too much money. So I doubt they're going to touch him. Eddie Jackson unfortunately can't tackle. I'm sure they know that, so I don't think they're going to want him. I mean, maybe you throw in both Kyle Fuller and Khalil Mack, maybe, but I don't know. Maybe I don't know what Akeem Hicks's contract situation is, but he's over 30 now. I don't know if he's going to be somebody you want to, that the Texans might want to, comply. But I just don't see any scenario. I don't. I mean, I'm sure Pace could try to do his best pitch, but I don't think they have on him to do it.
You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sidney Brown. We're breaking down the Deshaun Watson Sweepstakes, which is now open to the entire league, including the Chicago Bears. Looking at the base salary for your Chicago Bears from this past season, Khalil Mack, his base salary is over $17.5 million. The signing bonus is 6.8, which a total cap hit is over $26.5 million. That's the cap hit for the Chicago Bears. He takes up 14.6% of the cap. Kyle Fuller, which name I just brought up, he made over $9 million this year. No, that $9 million is dead cap. I'm sorry. But he made just over $17 million this year. If they will somehow cut him, which they won't, but his cap hit is $20 million even. Robert Quinn, $14.7 million in the cap hit. Akeem Hicks, you just asked for, Lakeena, $12 million. And Eddie Jackson, $11.4 million for this year.
Okay, so That doesn't leave much wiggle room for the if you're the Bears, doesn't leave much wiggle room. It doesn't.
Yeah, so if you're the Houston Texans, realistically, let's just take Khalil Mack out because he makes the most on the team. I brought up Kyle Fuller because he's your best defensive back on the team, and he makes the most, the second most on the team at $20 million. He's still young. You could take him. The other names I mentioned, Robert Quinn, Akeem Hicks, they're much older now. They make a whole lot of money. If you're Houston, realistically, you don't want that back.
Right.
Especially given the playoff. Akeem Hicks was injured again this year. Beal's more effective this year than he was a year ago. Robert Quinn was a big disappointment.
Right. So the cap, that cap thing is not going to work. So I mean, look. Kyle Fuller's been serviceable, but do you really think that's going to be enough if you're the Texans? I don't think so. But I'm looking through some of the caps. I mean, I know Jacksonville. I know that Adam Schefter sort of put out there that what if you're Watson and get his heir apparent if you want Trevor Lawrence, assuming that the Jags draft him. Do you sweep the number 1 pick and you get Deshaun Watson in Jacksonville? But again, do you really think Deshaun Watson's going to go to Jacksonville? I mean, they're a good 3, maybe 2-3 years before they even start contending. And so if you're Watson, you're starting to reach your peak. So yeah, they got a lot of cap room, and they're probably in the driver's seat, them the Jets, but they're still years away from actually contending. So I don't know if you're going to want to go to either one of those cities. What about you?
Yeah, Jacksonville, they have new head coach Urban Meyer down there now. You're going to start out with Justin Fields or perhaps Trevor Lawrence. He's the favorite to get picked up by there with that number 1 pick. So if you're Deshaun Watson, like you say, you want to win now. And Jacksonville is nowhere near winning now. And that's why we brought up the Bears to start out the top of the show. But if you're Watson, you may play for lame duck head coach. Let's just say things doesn't get off to a good start. And Matt Nagy dibbles and dabs and gets his dirty hands all over the play calling again. And I said this before, and I'll say it again. The McCaskies are great business decision makers, not great football decision makers. They're great in business, but not in football. Let's just say Deshaun Watson pouts to the media and to whoever who wants to listen to him. And let's just say he wants to pout to the McCaskies, some of that Matt Nagy does the same foolishness next year as he did this year. Do you think the McCaskies going to cave into his demands? No.
Oh no, not at all. That's not how they roll.
They'll get rid of the head coach, but do you think they're going to appease Watson and hire a new head coach that appease his needs? No. When did the McCaskies ever do that? Never.
Never. Oh, not at all. Never. So that's not going to happen. So, and I just don't see it. And look, I going through some of the other teams. I mean, I agree with what Shefty said that there's maybe only like 3 or 4 teams that probably don't need Watson. So, I mean, that's Baltimore, Seattle, Kansas City, of course, and also you could probably say Tampa as well. Although he hasn't said it yet, but it looks like Tom Brady will be playing there next year. He commit for 2 years. They're in the Super Bowl, so should they win, I'm sure he's going to want to try and repeat. But yeah, so other than those 4 teams, everything it's a free for all for everyone else. I mean, I've heard some people say I think I heard like one of the NFL Network guys that maybe perhaps Los Angeles, maybe the Rams. Oh, well, the Chargers, too, they probably don't need a quarterback because they've invested a lot of money in Justin Herbert. He's still cheap. He's still in the rookie contract, so they're not gonna want to, get him out of there. But how about the Rams, the team that they share the same field with, the same stadium with? I mean, supposedly there's, Sean McVay is not totally sold on Jared Goff. They have a little bit of a wiggle room in the cap, so what do you think about the Rams?
If they can find some sucker to take on that Jared Goff contract, so be it. And they're definitely in the driver's seat because they have a good defense. Aaron Donald, even though he was hurt during the playoffs, he's still the best defensive player in the league. You still have Leonard Floyd. If they bring him back, he had his best year this past season with 9.5 sacks. You still have Jalen Ramsey, one of the best defensive backs in the league, the cover corner in the league. So he's still good. And they gave him the extension before the season kicked off. So if they can find somehow some way to get from underneath that golf contract, have at it. There'll definitely be the team to watch in the NFC for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They'll definitely be right there. Excuse me, in the NFC West. So, a few other scenarios I've heard. Just keep it in that division. Somebody said Arizona, which I don't think they're going to do that. I mean, look,
No.
They still got Kyler Murray in that cheap rookie contract. So I don't see them. Okay, yeah, he had his struggles and was a little banged up, but I do not see them. I don't see them, trading Kyler Murray for Deshaun Watson. I'm sure Deshaun, I'm sure DeAndre Hopkins would like that, reunited with his buddy, but that's not happening. Although San Francisco maybe, because we really don't know if Jimmy G is going to come back. That team's kind of built now. What about San Fran?
San Fran makes football sense, but like you said, what are they going to do with Jimmy Garoppolo? And will Deshaun Watson work with head coach Shanahan? Not Mike Shanahan. I forgot. Kyle Shanahan. Thank you, not Mike. Good grief. But does Deshaun Watson fits Kyle Shanahan's offensive philosophy? We don't know.
Yeah, that's just, I don't think that's happening either. Maybe
it looks good on paper, but I don't know if it's going to work.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. What's another? Some people said Dallas, maybe, but again, you don't know what's going to happen with the Cowboys. They got a lot of dead money, so I don't know what's going to be the situation there. What about?
There are better options to bring Dak Prescott back. Jerry Jones, what are you doing? You should have signed up before the start of the season, and you saw what happened. If he didn't get hurt, that team was in the playoffs, period. Now, I'll remind folks that early in the year, the Dallas defense was trash. But despite all that, Dak was putting up some of the best numbers of his career.
Yeah, exactly.
So common sense should tell you, sign him right now. If you're Dak Prescott, you cannot ask for a quote-unquote hometown discount. You cannot ask for any discount because your value is higher, now even higher since you missed the season. Your team ended up with 6 victories. If you stayed healthy, that team would have won 10 games despite the early struggles of the season from the defense.
Oh yeah, so yeah, that whole saga. We're gonna be doing this again, Sid. I have a feeling. Here's another scenario, another team. What about Washington? Also, shout out to Ron Rivera. He is cancer free. He made the announcement.
Yes.
His daughter made the announcement. He confirmed it. So that's great to hear. So what about Washington? I mean, they've got some young looking covers. They got a pretty good pass rush. What about Washington? And that division's there for the taking. So
Deshaun Watson will have some weapons to work with a little bit. Terry McLaurin. You have Antonio Gibson, the running back, who had a nice year as a rookie. Like you mentioned, you have a young defense. Like you said, that division is up for the taking. I know I mentioned on our last episode that Matthew Stafford will be a good fit if Alex Smith retires. If Smith retires and they have a chance to go get Watson, so be it. Watson's almost like LeBron James. He's the LeBron James of the NFL. Any good team that you put him on, he becomes an instant contender. And Washington will definitely become an instant contender if he's on their squad.
Absolutely, definitely makes it a contender there. Some people said Cincy, but I know Joe Burrow's hurt, but they're not. They put the investment in him. So like we've been saying, give him a good O-line. Look, that Bengals O-line is just as bad as the Texans O-line.
That's why Burrow's hurt.
I'm not going over there unless you're gonna, invest in an O-line. No. And this is actually pretty funny, but I guess like one of the Cleveland Browns bloggers said, "Hey, what about Deshaun Watson to the Browns?" And the Baker Mayfield's like, "Wait, what, dude, what are you talking about? Huh? What?" I don't think that's gonna happen, but I just think that someone was just being silly. What about? I don't think it's gonna happen. But what about you when it comes to Cleveland?
No, leave Cleveland alone. Baker Mayfield has turned it around. Plus, it's all about running the football with him anyway. We saw that this year, even in their playoff loss to Kansas City. You take the ball out of Baker Mayfield's hands, when you give Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt time to run the ball and they pile up yards, it makes your quarterback that much better. That's their game plan. That's going to be their MO going forward. So I cannot see Deshaun Watson doing that. I'm sorry. It upgrades them on paper, but philosophy-wise, no.
Okay. Here's another team that's a wild card, and the coach loves. You know how much the head coach loves this quarterbacks. Las Vegas. What do you think about the Raiders?
I know they had draft capital for the last couple of years. Thank you, Chicago Bears, in that Khalil Mack trade. I know John Gruden, like you said, loves his quarterbacks. I know he wants to wash his hands of Derek Carr. I wouldn't be surprised if he was the Bears quarterback, by the way. I'm just throwing it out there. But what do the Raiders have left to give up for Deshaun Watson? Really, what do they have to give up? Unless you know something I don't know. I don't see him in a Raiders uniform. Although it wouldn't shock me, it would definitely help their franchise, and the Raiders would definitely be back in the national spotlight in terms of teams to watch in the National Football League. But I just don't see that happening.
I've heard some people said maybe New Orleans, but they got a lot of dead money, so
yeah, you can skip over them.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, and I don't think they have much in terms of draft capital, so I don't see that happening. I've heard some
Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston, if they're smart, they could be their starter of starting QB for the next year or two to figure it out long term.
Definitely. What about Philly? I mean, they just got a new coach. Supposedly, I guess they put in there that, hey, you got to work with Carson Wentz. But again, the same situation. A lot of dead money. What about Deshaun Watson to the Eagles?
That's not happening. That new head coach is supposed to go in there and fix Carson Wentz.
yeah, basically.
And plus, you have Jalen Hurts, so
I don't know.
That's gonna be a mess.
Yeah, look. These are just like dream scenarios with some of these teams. I mean, I know a lot of Colts fans are like, look, do you really? But like we've been saying, do you really think that they're going to be that the Texans are going to be stupid enough to trade him within the division? No, that's not going to happen. So this is just crazy. Do you have any other teams in mind that maybe could try to get Deshaun Watson?
Like I said, we didn't touch on this team yet. The New York Jets, I know they have the most draft capital, and I think they have the most cap space of any team in the National Football League. Now, if you're Deshaun Watson, the New York Jets are like the Chicago White Sox here in town. They're the second banana to the Chicago Cubs. The Jets are definitely second banana to the New York Jets. The Giants are struggling right now, even though they look like they're on their way up with new head coach Joe Judge. The Giants haven't won a Super Bowl in almost a decade. The Jets, you've been in purgatory forever. If Deshaun Watson is brought over there to the gang green and they become contenders right away, he'll own New York City.
Oh, yeah, he'll.
Even though that's a New York Giants town in terms of football, he will own that city.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he'd definitely be the king there. I don't see – maybe Miami. I mean, some people say Miami, they've got some draft capital. Look, they've got a pretty good up-and-coming team, but Tua, trade Tua, and then you get Watson back if you're Miami. Maybe. I mean, they've got a little bit of wiggle room. What do you think about the Dolphins?
The Dolphins will make the second most football sense, but here's the question I wanted to ask you, Lakeena. If you're Houston, of course, you're not going to trade them within the division. That's not happening. Do you stick with trading within your conference? Because outside your division, you wouldn't play them that often. But do you really want to trade them within the AFC? It looks like to me the teams that you read off, there's a little bit more options in the NFC than the AFC.
Oh, yeah. If you're Houston, I think, I saw Nick Cassero, who's a new GM, said, better we take a few questions. Organizationally, we want to reiterate our commitment to Deshaun Watson. We have zero interest in trading the player. Oh, he's the player now? You're not going to call him Deshaun or him? That's not
the lack of respect.
I mean, come on. Really? The player? Really? And you wonder why he doesn't want to play for y'all anymore? Come on. I mean, I don't know what's going on over there. I mean, Cal McNair wasn't even at the presser for the Texas new head coach David Culley. It seems like he has no interest in owning this team. Remember, his late father was more the football fan and also the business side of it. I'm sure he's turned over in his grave right now with all this has been going on with the organization. So, but the player, really, like, I know some people say this might be a chess master playing, but you're not doing a very good job.
Let's go over one more team, Lakeena, in the AFC, and I heard this team come up within the last 12 plus hours or so. The Denver Broncos.
I've thought about
I don't know
that.
if they have enough.
I've thought about that, but they've got a little bit of some stuff. I mean, we'll see where Von Miller is on the defensive side for next year. I don't know. Do they have the stuff that he needs? I mean, they may be another year or two away. I think the Broncos are. What do you think?
I think they are another year or two away. But let's be honest, Vic Fangio is going to year number 3. He has to win now, and if he doesn't, he's going to be headed out the door as well. So the Broncos are in a tough spot, but I don't know if they have enough capital to bring in Deshaun Watson. So it's going to be interesting. But Denver, it kind of makes sense, but I right now I just don't see it. I just don't.
Here's another one for the NFC, Carolina.
They have Teddy Bridgewater. I know they have a little bit of draft capital, but they don't have a complete team yet. So I get where the people are coming from with that, but I don't think they have enough. So it looks like they committed to Bridgewater however long he signed that contract last offseason. He could have been a Bear, by the way, but due to financial nonsense issues, he wasn't here. So it looks like they're going to stick with Bridgewater.
Yeah, I'm trying to think they do that. I think they do have a little bit of draft capital. The Panthers do, but like you said, you pay all the money to Teddy Bridgewater, you're going to bring Deshaun Watson, and it's kind of disrespectful to him. So I don't know about that. That's pretty much it. I think we went through a lot of the teams that probably could use Watson's services. Will he get traded? I mean, I know there have been some scenarios where they can just sit him and come on, especially if fans are allowed to come in next season. I mean, they want to see Deshaun Watson, so I don't. They're not gonna want to see insert quarterback here or whatever. So I think it may not be till training camp when and if he does get traded. There's going to be a lot of they may do it before the draft to see what can they get from
it's Lion season when it gets around draft time.
Right, exactly. So I'm just wondering what scenario, what can they do? I mean, I just at this point we just don't know what's going to happen.
You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Cindy Brown as we discussed the Deshaun Watson Sweepstakes as we now add the Chicago Bears back to the discussion, Lakeena. Before we close out this first segment, let me read you off the list of potential free agent quarterbacks for the Chicago Bears. We all know that Nick Foles is under contract for next year. I know some of y'all want to throw stuff at us. Don't get mad at us. It's just the facts. Let me read off some names for you, Lakeena. Let's be realistic here, okay? Sure. Let's just say Trubisky is not coming back, which is probably likely. Let me read you off some names. Jacoby Brissett.
Depends on how much money he wants.
Okay. Jacoby Brissett is 29 years old. Ryan Fitzpatrick, 39 years old.
Nope.
Tyrod Taylor, 32 years old. He had that punctured lung that was purposely, I thought. I sound like Lamont here. That the Chargers messed up his lung early in the year to get Justin Herbert in there. He's 32 years old. Would you want him in the Bears uniform?
Again, it's going to be about money, so maybe.
A.J. McCarron, who was Deshaun's backup in Houston.
Yeah, he was. It does sound like something that the Bears would do. Maybe get him for the league minimum, I guess. No disrespect to him, but I that's just I'll put him in the maybe column too because he's probably going to be the cheapest, I guess.
Andy Dalton, 34 years old.
Injury issues too. No.
Nathan Peterman, 27. He was the backup to Derek Carr, rather, in Las Vegas.
Nah, I think they'll pass on. Like they pass on him too.
Okay, RG3, 31 years old, Baltimore.
I like RG3, and I wish he had more success so far in NFL, but I don't. Especially with especially since he was hurt again this year, so that's a hard pass for me.
Matt Barkley, he's the backup to Josh Allen in Buffalo.
Yeah, it was kind of like a mentor to him the last couple of years. Again, no, like as Sid is telling all of you, there's not a lot of quarterbacks out there on the market that's going to be out on the market in the off season. So
yeah, okay. Couple more names here. Cam Newton, 32 years old, free agent. He was, of course, with New England this year. He had his issues with COVID.
Yes. They probably could have gotten him this year, but again, it is what it is. I mean, like I kick the tires on him and see if he's got anything left.
Here's the name, 24 years old, San Francisco, Josh Rosen. Remember, he was the guy a couple years ago for Arizona, and they traded him.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, like, is it a system issue with him? Is it, something else? I don't know. I mean, I think, does Kyle Shanahan want to try to make him, the starter? I guess, especially if Jimmy G doesn't come back. I don't know, but again, we'll maybe no, I don't see it. I mean, there's a reason why he's getting traded and let go. So he's got to think that there's got definitely some performance issues there.
Okay, Blaine Gabbert, currently the backup of the NFC champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Nah, I doubt it. He'll probably just stay. He might just stay there. He probably wouldn't have to play.
Nick Mullins, 26, San Francisco.
Probably kick the tires on him. He showed some flashes, this season with the Jimmy G hurt. So I would say maybe.
And one more name, Mr. Kyle Allen. He had a decent rookie year with Carolina in 2019. He's the backup quarterback with the Washington football team. He's 25 years old. Do you kick the tires on him? Do you think the Bears would kick the tires on him?
I think they would. I think they probably would. Just to see if he still has it. I mean, like you said, he's only 25. It seems like he's been around forever, but they probably would kick the tires on him.
And I'm not going to read up any other names because the rest of the list is that bad. So yeah. Those are the options for you Bears fans if you want a quote-unquote starting quarterback going into next year, assuming that Ryan Pace doesn't draft one in his upcoming draft. We already know, as I mentioned, that Nick Foles is under contract for next year, but the options out there are not that great. I know I was campaigning for Cam Newton a year ago. I'm not going to say that I wouldn't be happy if the Bears picked him up, but let's be honest here, they won't do the right thing by him, not by him.
Not they rarely do, and like not it's very slim pickings there, as Sid mentioned. So you don't know what to do here. But go back to Deshaun right quick, and I forgot about this team. And there's some people that may think that this could happen. How about New England?
There's something, and I'll bring up another quarterback in just a moment. A New York sports radio host brought up another quarterback that could go to New England. I'll bring that part up in just a moment. But Deshaun Watson to New England, Bill Belichick, I don't know how old he is. You can look that up, Lakeena. But I know New England, I don't know what their cap situation is. They usually do pretty good, i.e. Bill Belichick, his government name. But if they can find some way to get to Deshaun Watson, so be it. I guarantee you this, Bill Belichick will coach for the next 5 to 10 years. You don't think he can get a Super Bowl out of that? Assuming that he rebuilds that defense the right way, and assuming that he gets a number one wide receiver, which they haven't had in forever. If you can do those things, assuming that they get Deshaun Watson, Bill Belichick will definitely get another Super Bowl, despite what happens next Sunday with Brady and company in Tampa. Bill Belichick would definitely get a Super Bowl without Brady. Here's Super Bowl number 7. I got Deshaun Watson. What are you going to say about me now?
They're in the top 5 with the cap, so they actually have some cap money. But like you said, Sid,
Okay.
I mean, they've had a lot of defensive guys opt out, and those guys are going to be older. So you don't have a wide receiver. Julian Edelman, he's on the other side of 30 now. He's having injury issues. So I don't know. I mean, you see what Brady is doing in Tampa. Do you kind of kick the tires on Deshaun Watson? Maybe, I don't know, but we'll see. I mean, like I said, this is going to be there are going to be a lot of twists and turns in this, and I know that the Texans can say all they want. Well, we want to keep the player. Okay, apparently he hasn't even talked to Deshaun. It sounds like so. That's a big red flag right there. So this is probably gonna get a little even crazier before we get a resolution here, but it's gonna be very interesting, no doubt.
Yeah, and before we wrap up here, I was listening to some New York sports radio, and this host suggested that if Bill Belichick would bring this quarterback into their system, that they'll automatically become contenders, and Belichick would definitely stay in coaching for the next few years. Do you think it's a realistic possibility that Matthew Stafford could join the Patriots? I see why not. I don't know if they're going to trade for him, but let's just assume that Detroit does not find a trade partner and they just cut Stafford, which is probably end up happening anyway. If you build Belichick, that's kind of what happened last year with Cam Newton. He waited till the market was fair for him, picked him up right before training camp, and you saw what happened. Do you think that same scenario can play out again this year if they want Matthew Stafford?
Yeah, I think that could happen. I mean, that's definitely a scenario there. And, the only thing is with Stafford, I mean, he'll have to play in the elements for like half the year. And I'm sure he's not used to that. So that might play a factor too. But like we said last week, I mean, like you got Indianapolis, that team's ready to win now. That's another team that's ready to win now. All they need is a quarterback. Maybe Washington, perhaps,
Yeah, I told you, Matt Stafford, let me repeat again, like I said in the last episode, if Alex Smith retires, that's my dark horse team for Stafford to be picked up with Washington.
Yeah.
People are sleeping on Washington.
Yeah, look, I mean, they've got a young up-and-coming, offense. We know the defense is really good. Just got to shore up that secondary. Look, I think and the NFC East is very winnable. So
yes,
if you go to the Patriots, I mean, you got to deal with Miami, who's up and coming. You got to deal with Buffalo. They'll be back next year if they add some pieces, especially if they add some pieces we talked about in the last episode. So if you're Matt Stafford, I think you might be right about him perhaps maybe looking at Washington because like for all the reasons we've said for the last couple episodes.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. The quarterback carousel in the National Football League is just getting started. Where do the Bears fall on that? It's going to be interesting, Lakeena, so we'll all find out together. Let's take this 20-second timeout on the weekend edition of Second City Sports Stretch. Get your beverage, get your favorite snack. On the flip side, we'll talk Chicago Bulls, their game against Boston earlier this week. We're going to have to go over some things. The National Basketball Association as a whole, we'll have to go over some things as well. And college basketball, we'll preview the Saturday and Sunday games for you, and plus a whole lot more. You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports. Welcome back to the second half of the weekend edition of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom Style.
Along with Miss Lakeena McGee, I am Sydney Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the Instagram at SidK80. Once again, at SidK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow this show, Second City Sports, along with the other podcast programming from War Media by simply going to our website at weareregalradio.com. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure you search for War on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor. iTunes, Apple, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, that iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type in that search engine box War on Anchor. And you can also find us on the Tube, a.k.a. YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. You can not only watch us, not only listen to us, but watch us do our thing live. Thank you for your support ahead of time.
Absolutely. Like, share, subscribe, and tell your buddies.
Yes. And we got to tell you guys this, especially for those of you living in the Chicagoland area, as we transition over to basketball. The Chicago Bulls currently, their record stands at 7 wins and 10 losses after Monday's defeat to the Boston Celtics at the UC 119-103. Of course, the Bulls on a current mini losing streak. As far as Monday's game it was concerned, Lakeena, Zach LaVine led the Bulls again with 30 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. On the flip side, Marcus Smart led Boston with 13 points, 5 rebounds, and 11 assists. Lakeena, as we talked about for the last few shows, the Bulls need to continue that fight. It looks like they're getting some respect from around the league. No, we didn't expect this team to be a championship team. Some people may call this team a playoff team. Maybe that'll be the case by season's end, but as of right now, they are still growing. They're still trying to find themselves. There's a little bump in the road called injuries. Unfortunately, the injury bug has hit the Bulls again. Wendell Carter Jr., their first-round draft pick from a couple years ago out of Duke, he'll miss the next month of action because of a quad injury. Lakeena, before we break down this loss to the Celtics from Monday, what does this do to the Bulls as far as long term? We talked about Lauri Markkanen on the last couple of episodes. It looks like he's found his game. Looks like everybody else's minutes going to have to be bumped up now. Who's going to take up that load in the absence of Carter?
Yeah, that's going to be the thing, right? Yeah, will Daniel Gaffer? Will we see him more? We'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'm sure we'll see Garrett Temple in the starting lineup. Maybe perhaps him and Gaffer going back and forth. Instead of Tavares spot at center. Maybe Otto Porter Jr. Maybe he might. He had 13 points off the bench in that game against the Celtics. Maybe Thaddeus Young. They really, the Bulls really don't have a center unless you put Markkanen in that center position where Carter usually is. I mean, maybe get him to play center a little bit. And, just move some guys around. So I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see what different combos that Coach Donovan decides to use. As far as the game is concerned, look, you're going to have games like this. I mean, they were 17 for 39 from 3. Their free throws shooting has not been very good lately. They were 4 for 10 their last game, so that didn't help their cause either. I mean, look, you're going to have these sort of ebbs and flows over the season. They had 18 turnovers, which is that's not you can't really get away with those types of turnovers. They had some bad ones too against a team like Boston because they will take advantage of those turnovers. They're one of the best at that. So I'm not freaking out. I know I've heard some people in both our sports stations say questioning this team's toughness. I mean, I think they're still they've shown that fight. I mean, look, if you're gonna get pushed around by a team like Boston, that's gonna happen. Even in a short 72 game season, you're still gonna get these kinds of games. It's gonna happen. So I would say this is one of those games where you just throw it out to the fire and light the match and just move on to the next game. And they actually haven't played since then because they were supposed to have played against the Grizzlies, since what we talked about earlier this week because of COVID issues with the Grizzlies. They had to postpone that. So now they play tomorrow against a Portland team, which you thought that maybe they were starting to kind of get together, but they haven't. They lost a couple in a row. We'll talk more about the rest of the league in a little bit. But what do you think? What do you think, Sid? What are your thoughts on the Bulls?
Speaking of that 5 position, Lakeena, I think Lauri Markkanen from an offensive perspective will work at the 5, and because he'll open up driving lanes for everybody else, like Kobe White, who struggled on Monday, and it was Zach LaVine. They'll open up lanes to get to the basket as well. So Lauri Markkanen, from an offensive perspective, he will draw those big guys away from the lane because we all know that Lauri Markkanen likes to shoot, and so he can pick up his own dribble and create his own shot when need be. But I think offensively, Markkanen can play the 5 as well as anybody on that team. Now, defensively, there's where they're going to struggle. You brought up my guy, Daniel Gafford. I love the energy that he brings off the bench, but he's going to have to step up more now. Like you mentioned, Garrett Temple, he's going to have to come in too. Do I need to say this person's name? Christian Felicio? How much playing time will he get? I figure hopefully not much, but maybe to spell some guys' minutes that they get in foul trouble here and there. But
yeah,
this is where we are on the Bulls roster.
Yeah, but don't let our buddy Matt Peck come sure, because he loves Felicio. No, not really, but I mean, like, don't let him hear you say that. I mean, look, didn't they try that a couple of games ago and it didn't really work? He actually wasn't too bad, but I don't know if he's your answer to replace Carter Jr. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of combos that they use, but we'll see.
Yeah, as you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, Thaddeus Young, he stepped up big on Monday. He added 16 points. Otto Porter Jr., as you mentioned, added 13. Garrett Temple has been a nice surprise these last few weeks. He only contributed 8 points, but I wanted to see the bench be more productive now since we know that Carter Jr. is going to be out for the next month. So it's going to be important to see how the bench production from this team, because they're going to need it now more than ever, given Kobe Wright's struggles and given Patrick Williams, the rookie out of Florida, his struggles. Yes, he's a rookie and he's going to eventually figure it out, but 2 points is not going to get it done. But I'm not going to be too hard on the young man, referring to Patrick Williams. Like I said, he's going to be fine, but this is when your veterans come in and to spell your starters of minutes. And now we're one of your big-time core players, and Wendell being out, who's going to help fill in those shoes. As far as the way this roster is constructed, it's going to be a total team effort.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so it'll be interesting to see what the Bulls do. Do they, who do they go to kind of fill out that void? I mean, you're gonna have to get somebody who can attack off the glass, who can be aggressive, inside and get those rebounds. So yeah, the pickers are kind of slim, but I think like you got guys that are capable of doing the job. So we'll see what they do. It'll be very interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Like you mentioned, they have a game against the Portland Trail Blazers Saturday night at the United Center. Portland has had their struggles here over the last few days. Of course, we mentioned in our last episode, C.J. McCollum, he'll be out with an injury. Dame Dollar, if you watched that game on Thursday, we'll review that in just a moment. He lit up the Houston Rockets with another logo 3, among other things. We'll get to that in just a moment. But Portland's one of those streaky teams. The Bulls do have a chance in that one. And then, of course, you have a mini-series against the New York Knicks next week. We'll get more into that in our next episode. So the Bulls have some winnable games coming up. I'm not predicting doom and gloom because of the injury. They still have enough talent on this roster to get some wins. Now, as far as playoffs are concerned, that's really too early to tell, but they still have enough to be competitive. I repeat, do not expect this team to lay down.
No, I don't either. Like I said, like we've been saying for the last from past episodes, they're going to put up that fight. As long as they keep up that fight, I think they'll be able to steal maybe one of those other games that they play when they play some of the top teams. So we'll see what happens there. So, and these last few days since our last podcast, Sid, what has impressed what team or a player or anything like that? What has impressed you most?
The Brooklyn Nets, let's highlight their game against the Atlanta Hawks from this past Wednesday. The Nets got by the Hawks 132-128 in overtime. James Harden led Brooklyn with 31 points, 8 rebounds, and 15 assists. He's starting to become more of that playmaker again, even though Kyrie is back now. It seems like Harden and Durant and Kyrie, they're meshing, at least offensively, but we all know that the problem is defensively for the Brooklyn Nets, I should say. And that's something they're going to have to figure out over these next few weeks until the trade deadline. Will they pick up somebody via trade, or will they have to wait until some of these quote-unquote aging, high-priced veterans get bought out, like potentially Andre Drummond of Cleveland? Maybe Kevin Love is bought out as well. So the Nets will have some options, but until then, they have to get their game together defensively.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think they've definitely improved. They still got a lot of improvement left, but I'm sure they'll get better once, as long as they can avoid any more like major serious injuries. I think the Nets have kind of sort of finding their rhythm. So I'm looking forward to see what they do. They've got some games coming up this weekend. We'll get to those games in just a little bit, but I think for me, I think Utah. They've won 10 in a row.
Mhm.
They're now number one out west right now. We'll see how long they can keep that up. I mean, I think they've been able to kind of, I think they kind of take advantage of their scheduling. I mean,
Mhm.
they played the Pelicans a couple of times. They played the Warriors. The Mavs have had their struggles. They play them again tonight. So I'm thinking that they've kind of taken advantage of the fact that their schedule has been kind of light. I'm not no disrespect to those teams, but I think they've been able to take advantage
Mhm.
of it. But look, Donovan Mitchell's been playing very well. Ilga's been playing very well too. They're actually getting some. They're actually getting some support from some of their guys off the bench in Utah. Look, Quinn
Mhm.
Snyder is probably probably one of the best coaches that a lot of people probably don't know too much about. So I'm kind of cautiously optimistic. I don't think they're going to be the top team in the West when all's said and done. Look, it's still a long season, even though it's supposed to be short. But look, you can still
Mhm.
look. I mean, there'll be ebbs and flows throughout the season. I mean, it's going to be insane. Look, Jordan Clarkson, like I said, guys on the bench. He led them in points in their last game. So he had 31 off the bench in the game against Dallas a couple of nights ago. So he's been contributing a lot. So look, again, I'm not too keen on them, but it's nice to see Utah, especially after that early exit in the playoffs, a few months ago, to kind of play like the team that we thought they could be.
We didn't bring this up on our last episode, Lakeena, but did you watch Inside the NBA? I forgot who Utah was playing, but the TNT guys, the Inside the NBA crew led by Shaq, Kenny, and Charles and
Uh-huh.
Ernie. Shaq was interviewing
Yeah, I saw that.
Donovan Mitchell, and he asked him, "I don't think you that type of player." Just paraphrasing, I don't think you that type of player to bring a team to a championship. Donovan Mitchell said, "Okay." But like you said, Utah's been one of those hot teams in the league. Of course, last year they had a disappointing first round exit against Denver. Donovan Mitchell is a very good player. Will he be that guy to carry Utah past the first round, past the second round, like they reached during his rookie year a couple of years ago? It's just so stacked in the West. I'm not sure. As I said in a couple episodes ago, prove it to me in the playoffs. Rudy Gobert is still there. Utah is just one of those teams that had to fight their way through Denver and the Lakers, and so that's their reality right now. But there's been an issue with certain players, especially younger players, that are sensitive to harsh criticism. I don't think you could place that on Donovan Mitchell, but you could place it on players like Kevin Durant, and to a lesser extent LeBron James. I know the NBA is now AAU culture and all that, but it seems like to me that I repeat, some of our stars in the National Basketball Association are so sensitive to criticism. We know Durant, he can take his feelings to Twitter, make up burner accounts and put everybody on blast. And other players just like do silly memes on Twitter and Facebook and things of that nature. What do you think about today's NBA player? Do you think they can really take harsh criticism from the older guys like Shaq and Barkley?
Yeah, I saw that exchange. I thought it was sort of look. Shaq's got the resume, so he can pretty much
Mm-hmm.
call out anybody he wants. So and look, I know that was tough for Donovan Mitchell to swallow, but I think, like you said, I don't want to say these younger guys are being coddled, but the fact that they play AAU, most of them end up playing in college, some of them do go straight to the
Mm-hmm.
NBA, but. Look, I mean, Mitchell's been one of those guys that actually spent a couple of years in college. He did spend like about 2 or 3 years at Louisville. But
Mm-hmm.
like we've been, like I said, I mean, I think like you said too, Sid. I mean, a lot of them probably can't take the harsh criticism. Maybe not. I mean, I don't want to say they're being coddled, but they've sort of been protected from like the criticism. So when you hear guys like Shaq, I know Mark Jackson said some things about some of the younger players too, to some
Mm-hmm.
extent. I mean, look, these guys know what they're talking about. I'm sure. Look, I'm sure back in the day when they were playing, some of the the analysts then were probably saying some stuff too. Maybe not to this extent, but maybe privately
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. So, but I think, look, I think if you're Donovan Mitchell, I think you just kind of take it, just take it for, just to take it as sort of a challenge, if you want. And so far, he's done that. I mean, him and Gobert, like I said a couple minutes ago, and like you said too, Sid. I mean, they've been doing a great job. Well, Jordan Clark's has been doing very well off the bench. we'll see if they can keep it up. It's going to be hard for them to do that, but like I said, they've had a light schedule, so they've been able to benefit from that. So we'll see what they do, but like I said, I think they're a little. I think the younger players are a little bit too sensitive too. I mean, what KD does, having burner accounts, to kind of get on guys that insult him, but it is what it is.
You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports, along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sidney Brown. As we discuss the National Basketball Association, we'll get to you our previews for this weekend's games coming up. Lakeena, let's go stay out west and go to Los Angeles. Not the Clippers, but the Los Angeles Lakers. They started off the year 10-0 on the road. They lost their last 2 games on their East Coast road trip, including their loss at Detroit on Thursday, only scoring 14 fourth-quarter points. But I want to focus in on Wednesday's game. They lost a heartbreaker to the 76ers, 107-106. LeBron James led the Lakers for 34 points. Ben Simmons had a triple-double for the Sixers, 17 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists. Late in that game, Joel Embiid was fouled hard by LeBron James. Joel Embiid, I think this is the first time this year he's made headlines since the season started. He said after the game that LeBron James should have been kicked out of the game. It was a hard fall, but call me crazy, but I didn't think it was anything malicious.
Yeah, me neither.
It was just unfortunate the way that Embiid fell on his back. Thank goodness he was okay, but it was a nasty fall.
Yeah, it was pretty nasty. And I don't think, like you said, I think it's just that the way he fell, because Embiid's such a big dude. So when someone that big kind of takes a tumble like that, you freak out and you get called for a flagrant. I think that's probably why he got called for a flagrant, because of the way Embiid fell. I think that was really more than anything. Thankfully, Embiid avoided serious injury, but. On the court, though, I mean, Tobias Harris, hit a big shot. He actually made a defensive stop. Kept AD from making a surpass me, set up for a last second shot. I think. I know. I'm sure some Lakers fans are kind of freaking out a little bit. They lost to Detroit last night. I wouldn't I wouldn't freak out if I were Lakers fans. Look, you're gonna get these kind of games in the season. You're gonna have okay. And also LeBron hasn't taken a game off yet, so you gotta feel like that's kind of playing a part too. And look, you're gonna have these sort of stretches where you're gonna lose some. You're gonna lose a couple of times. You're gonna lose 2 teams that you probably have no business losing to. It happens. So I wouldn't freak out too much if you're a Lakers fan. They have a big one tomorrow night, I should say, against Boston. So that should be a fun one there. That's one of those ESPN ABC games. So I'm sure that'll get big ratings. Look, the Clippers, they had a nice win a couple of nights ago. They've been playing pretty well. Denver, looks like Denver has finally kind of figured out they've won 5 in a row. That should be that I'm glad. I'm happy for Jamal Murray and Jokic. Jokic is
yes.
Their bench has actually been playing better too. So they had a nice win against both the Mavericks and the Heat. Sorry, Alana, our girl Alana touched her. We'll get to her Heat in a little bit because she there's some. I wish we had her on because she's got some explaining to do. We're talking about her Heat and what's going on with them. But I like Denver, what they're doing. I mean, Millsap's actually been playing pretty well. Michael Porter Jr. has been playing better too off the bench, like I said, just like I just said. So Denver looks really good. Memphis will see how they look because they haven't played like over a week and a half. They actually had a 5-game winning streak before they had to stop due to the COVID situation down there. So they play a big one against the Spurs tonight. So we'll see what they do there as well. So who's impressed you league wide?
I was going to say the Golden State Warriors, even though they lost their game to the Phoenix Suns on Thursday in front of a national audience. They looked good against the Timberwolves the night before. They're 10-9 right now. Steph Curry is playing very well right now. Andrew Wiggins has stepped up, averaged over 22 points a game his last 3 games. So, as I said before, should the Warriors stay healthy, they're going to be a team to be reckoned with as far as getting that play-in tournament. But their core guys, in particular Curry and Draymond Green, they got to stay healthy.
Absolutely. And also, Houston's played pretty well, too. They've won 4 in a row.
Yeah.
It looks like they're starting to kind of find their rhythm. Houston's looked good. Over East, everyone's been kind of up and down, right? I mean, there hasn't really been the hot team. Miami's lost 5 in a row. You wonder what's going on there. Like we mentioned the Nets too. The Pacers and the Bucks have won each one a couple in a row too. So, what do you think? What about out east? Who's impressed you so far out east besides the Nets?
I know Milwaukee. I know I'm not a big fan. I don't hate the team, but it's just the way that team is structured. You've been close the last couple of years. I think this year is going to end up the same story. But focusing on right now, I know they got a big win at Toronto via Tampa the other night. Giannis finally got off the schneid. He had a big game. I'm still worried about Toronto. I know they're 7-11 as of this recording, but I think they can still turn it around. If you're Milwaukee on the flip side, can you keep that momentum up? Because you're not the top dog anymore. Philadelphia is coming for you. Brooklyn's there. Philadelphia is there. So in Boston, a team that no one's talking about, as soon as they get healthy with Kemba Walker and those guys, Jaylen Brown's playing out of his mind this year. They'll be right there. So if you're Milwaukee, you cannot coast like you have last season when everything is going your way. Those days are over. You got to go out and compete.
Look, especially if you want to be taken seriously, especially the way
Exactly.
you lost. Especially the
you
way
got to
you
beat
lost.
these teams as well.
Yeah, especially the way you lost in the bubble. I mean, that people still remember that. So Milwaukee's got to get together. So we'll see what they can do. On the flip side, though, the Wizards. I mean, they've had a lot of issues with COVID, and there's a lot of free Bradley Beal tweets I'm seeing lately. So what do you think about the Wizards?
Will they ever get rid of him? That's the question. We had experts and pundits on the last year or so on our radio show and on this podcast asking the question, when will Bradley Beal be traded? The Wizards are going through it right now. It's a rebuild. Of course, they traded John Wall before the start of the season for Westbrook, and that was basically exchanged for bad contracts. So I'm with Bradley Beal. If you rebuild it, fine. I just don't want to be a part of it. The question is, which team is going to get him and for what price?
And and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of teams. I'm sure Milwaukee's probably going to try it too. Maybe somebody, I don't know if either the Western Conference teams or either them have, guys that can trade, and maybe the Chicago Bulls. I'm not saying that they will, but again, look, I mean, Beal was like, Billy Donovan's like his last big time recruit before he left for the NBA. So I'm sure he's kind of been in Eversley and also AK's ear, say, hey, maybe we can put a nice little piece, nice little package there to get Bradley Beal to come here. So that way you can kind of build around him.
Yeah, who would you have right now? Assuming a deal like that goes down with the Bulls, who's the better player, Bradley Beal or Zach LaVine? Assuming that they get traded for each other, which one would you rather have? I would like, no disrespect, I would like to have Bradley Beal right now.
Yeah, I love Zach. Zach's still doing this thing. I hope he keeps doing it. But if you had to make a choice, I take Beal and perhaps maybe build around him. We'll see. I mean, look, there's still a lot to figure out. So the Wizards right now have given no indication they are going to trade him. So it's nice to speculate, though, right?
Yeah, it's fun. That's why we do what we do. Take a look at the highlighted games for this coming weekend in the NBA. Besides the Chicago Bulls facing the Portland Trail Blazers on Saturday, there's a couple of the games that people should take notice for, where they have League Pass or, as Lakeena would say, via her laptop. For Saturday, the Houston Rockets will travel to New Orleans to face the Pelicans. Will the Pelicans trade J.J. Redick? Will they trade Lonzo Ball? His name's been out there as well, but Zion Williamson still piling up numbers. So is Brandon Ingram. Houston's new big three of Oladipo, Wall, and Cousins. Looks like you mentioned, again, they starting to get together. Of course, it's highlighted by that Lakers-Celtics game on ABC on Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. As of right now, as of this recording, the Grizzlies will play their first game in a long time against the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs quietly have turned it around. They are 10-8 right now in the midst of that playoff spot in the Western Conference. And the highlight game at 8 p.m. on Saturday is the Phoenix Suns. Big win on Thursday in front of a national audience against the Warriors. They'll travel to Dallas to face the Mavericks. The Mavericks are 2 games under 500, but I wouldn't count them out just yet.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I think that there are definitely a lot of fight in them. So I would be, yeah, I mean, like I said, I wouldn't freak out if, I'm sure fans are kind of freaking out about what's been happening. But look, we still got a lot of, we're only even a month, we're only about like a little over a month into the season, Sid. I mean, look,
Mm-hmm.
I think you still got teams that are kind of jockeying for position, especially out west since it's so deep. So there's going to be a lot of fight probably for those bottom four spots and the play-in game. So we'll see. We'll see. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll see how Memphis looks because, like I said, they haven't played like over a week because of COVID issues they've had, and they had a 5-game winning streak before that. So we'll see how they look. That should be a fun one with the Grizzlies
Mm-hmm.
and Spurs. So I'm looking forward to that one too.
Yep, John Moran versus DeMar DeRozan. That should be fun. Couple of highlight games for Sunday at 2:30 is the Jazz and the Nuggets from Ball Arena in Denver. Of course, in the nightcap at 6 p.m., you'll have Philadelphia at Indiana. Indiana has struggled recently, but Philadelphia has the best record in the Eastern Conference with a 13-6 mark. And also, too, for Sunday, the Nets will be back in action against the 3-11 Washington Wizards.
Should be a
So
fun.
those are your highlight games for Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, don't forget that the Celtics they host the Lakers on ABC. So that'll be a
Yeah, we
national.
mentioned that.
Yeah, so national televised audience. That's always a fun one between those two played during the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
Phoenix and Dallas too. That might be a good one. I know Dallas have had their struggles with guys, with COVID and other issues. So we'll see how Dallas looks. Phoenix got a nice win, last night against the Warriors, like you mentioned, Sid. But I'm looking forward to
Mm-hmm.
this one. That should be a fun one on Saturday.
Yeah, so with the no football this weekend, and let's be honest here, no one gives a damn about the Pro Bowl. So there's plenty of opportunities to catch up on some NBA basketball. You're listening to Second City Sports Weekend Edition along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown. As we now transition over to college basketball, Lakeena, there's some good games for Saturday and Sunday. Let's make note as of this recording, the Friday night action between the Fighting Illini of Illinois and the Iowa Hawkeyes. That game would already been played once this episode is released. We'll break down that game for you in our next episode coming up on Monday, which is want to make note of that. Lakeena, what are some of the other highlighted games from college basketball this upcoming weekend, starting with Saturday?
Well, you got the SEC Big 12 Challenge going on this weekend, Sid, and one of the games actually just got postponed due to to Corona. Texas and Kentucky, Kentucky's actually paused their activities because there was a positive test in their program, so they've paused all
Mm-hmm.
activities. So best wishes to whoever it was, and hopefully Kentucky can kind of get back on track. Also, too, going outside sort of the A-10, if you will. St. Louis is one of the top teams, like non-Power 5 teams, but their game against Richmond has been postponed due to a positive COVID test in their program. So, unfortunately, there's COVIDs we can have against some of these games, but there's still plenty of other games coming up this weekend, as Sid mentioned. Tennessee and Kansas. Kansas
Mm-hmm.
lost 3 in a row, so they're looking to kind of get back on track. Let's see here. Oh, I got the wrong. My bad, kids. I got the wrong date. That's tonight's action. Oh, Alabama to Oklahoma. That should be a good one. First time since 07 to 08 season, Alabama's in the top 10 in men's hoops. NATO's
Yeah.
right. I know, right? I mean, look, NATO's this guy's playing very well, and Oklahoma's been playing pretty well too. So, look, that should be a good one. That's one of those early games. That's an 11 a.m. game on ESPN. So make sure you guys check that out.
Real quickly, Keena, before you move on, the last time, I know recent history, I know he's not coached anymore in Alabama. I know Avery Johnson coached there a couple years ago and helped Colin Sexton get into the NBA.
Yep.
But when was the last time you heard of Alabama basketball, especially like this? I don't even know they were even this good, but back in the 90s, Robert Horry and Antonio Dice.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember those teams. Oh God, I love those teams. Was Latrell Sprewell on those teams too? I want to say. Oh, maybe it's a little bit later, but Okay, hold on. Let me see. Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while since. Okay, wait a minute. 50. Yeah, he was. Yeah, Latrell was around those teams too, in those late '90s with Robert Ory and Antonio McDyess. I think McDyess was after those two. So, but yeah, I think they were.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Yeah, they were like the top. They were like a top 15, top 20 team back then, but they kind of ebbs and flows. I mean, remember they're more of a football school, if you will. But Nails has looked like so far so good. I mean, we thought Avery Johnson was able to do it, but there was some other stuff that went on in the department. We won't go there, but nothing like too major. But I think like just a change at the top. I think that's had more to do with him being let go over there. But but yeah, I mean, Nails has been playing these guys really well. So good for them, and I'm happy for them. And we'll see. They got him as a 2 seed right now, so we'll see what happens with that. Texas Tech and LSU, that should be a fun one. Totally different styles. We'll see how that goes. Florida and West Virginia, TCU and Missouri. These are the afternoon games. Villanova and Seton Hall. Villanova's kind of picked up where they left off because remember we talked about they had COVID issues for a couple of weeks, but they kind of got back on track. Let's see what else.
I see Virginia Tech on the ACC network for Saturday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. The Battle of Virginia, the state of Virginia. That should be a fun one.
That's all. Look, that's always a battle there. I don't, in-state battle. I don't care what sport, whether it's football, hoops, volleyball. I know their volleyball teams have had. They've been kind of going at it too. So that's always a fun one. Whenever you're playing your in-state rival. UCLA and Oregon State. UCLA has been playing pretty well out in the Pac-12. Creighton and DePaul. I mean, again, that's
no pun intended, but DePaul's playing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll give them a mulligan, sort of, with everything that's happened.
That's why I said no pun intended.
Right, exactly. Belmont Murray State in the Ohio Valley, the top 2 teams in that conference, as it usually has been the last few years. That's always a fun one between those two. When those two teams play each other. Stanford and Arizona State. That should be a fun one there out in the Pac-12. And I'll look at the Sunday's matchup. So any other matchups that that's pique your interest?
Let's stick with the local college action, Lakeena. 4:00 on Saturday. Our guy Jay Hood. Hopefully we can get him on this program in the future. USC Flames 8-5, including the 5-3 record in the horizon. They'll travel to face Northern Kentucky. They're 7-8 and 5-5 in the horizon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look, I mean, they've been playing well too. I think Loyola plays Missouri State. I think Missouri State.
Yeah.
I think they're right there too. I think they're in the top tier of the Missouri Valley. So that should be a fun one there down.
Yeah, it's a battle between Drake and, like you say, Loyola Chicago. And I heard a couple of analysts say that this Ramblers team could be better than the one that went to the Final Four a couple of years ago. That may be at the end, but I gotta wait and see more.
And Drake's undefeated too right now. They're one of the I think they're one of the few teams that's still undefeated. So yeah.
At 16-0.
Yeah, they got a veteran squad. I think they got like 5 seniors, I think, in their starting lineup. So if I haven't watched watch Drake, but I know what I've been learning about them when I found out they're undefeated. They have a veteran squad. I think they got, like I said, all their starting lineups are seniors. So they have an all senior or all 5th-year senior starting lineup. So they've got them. I don't know I forgot who the coach is there, but they're playing very well. I mean, could they perhaps maybe be a spoiler for somebody with tournament time? They host Illinois State on Sunday, so that should be a fun one there. Oh, Northwestern, they host Rutgers. We'll see if they can get back on track. They've struggled. They've struggled a lot.
Well, Juan Harper didn't go off on Northwestern.
Yeah. Look, I mean, they're starting to get back on track. Rutgers is, so we'll see if they can do there. That's basically it. Washington State. Washington, they're going through a rebuild mode, so you got to give them a mulligan there. Michigan State, Ohio State. I know Michigan State, they've had their struggles lately for various reasons, so we'll see what they do.
Yeah, that game's till Sunday at noon on CBS, so I'm interested to watch them. Michigan State hasn't made that big of a noise this year. I know they're 8-5 overall, but they're only 2-5 in Big Ten play. Of course, Ohio State is ranked number 13 in the nation, 7-4 in the Big Ten, but 13-4 record overall.
Should be a fun one there. Also down in Houston, you got the top two teams in the American. You got SMU and Houston, number 6, Houston, the Cougars of Houston. That's also a noon game on ESPN, so that should be a fun one there. Those who have always had some, great matchups over the years. So yeah, we're kind of going to the last 6 weeks, I guess, before conference play starts. They're like we talked about in the last couple episodes. Some people said that maybe they might pause for a week or two because some teams have had COVID issues. Stanford has been able to play in their own campus because of the restrictions in their county, but it looks like they might be coming back maybe next week. They might be able to play in their campus. We'll see what they do there. But yeah, that's basically all your college hoops news. And we actually have some confirmation on some sad news. Sid, John Chaney, the legendary coach over at Temple, various news outlets have confirmed that he passed away at the age of 89 due to COVID. He had COVID. He's been in the hospital with COVID for the last few weeks. Those late 80s, early 90s Temple teams where you had Mark Macon and those guys, unfortunately, they weren't able to make the Final Four. I mean, the teams would make it back in the mid to late 80s. They were right there. Unfortunately, couldn't get over the hump. Kind of stayed up until, I think, to the end. So, it's been a tough year for college hoops fans. Losing some pioneer coaches. He was definitely a pioneer. He kind of revitalized that area in Philly, kind of helped set off that Philly 5 tournament or Philly 5 tournaments with Temple and Villanova and LaSalle and Penn. I don't know, that might be another team I'm missing, but yeah, those are the 4 main teams in Philly. So definitely revitalized the recruiting there and whatnot. Was a top coach from the first year he took over at Temple to the very end, and basically made Temple a power for a long time.
Yeah, and just reading down his accomplishments here, we'll just highlight some of them. He was the Atlantic 10 Coach of the Year 5 times in 1984, 1985, 1987, 88, and then again in 2000. He was the AP Coach of the Year in 88 and a UPI Coach of the Year also in 1988. He was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame in 2001, and the College Basketball Hall of Fame opened up his doors to him back in 2006. Lakeena, he was one of the few black head coaches back then, along with the now late great John Thompson at Georgetown. He was doing his thing over there back then. He was one of the first coaches that I knew in terms of Chaney that it was reported in the public that he had 5 a.m., 6 a.m. practices before his players went to class. So, of course, you don't hear too many stories of that anymore. He was a very intense guy. Like you mentioned, he revitalized he changed the game as far as recruiting, especially in that Philadelphia area. And, of course, we all remember, you're going to hear this throughout this weekend, him and John Calipari got into it. And, of course, John Calipari was the head coach at UMass back in the mid-'90s. He called, if I have the story right, Calipari called one of John Chaney's players goons. Of course, Chaney interrupted Calipari's press conference, yelling at him and things along that line. So I know that's one of, if not a few blemishes on Chaney's record, if you want to say, but that's not going to deter of what he did as far as basketball is concerned, in college basketball in particular. He's going to be missing. His mark is heavily stained on the game forever. It's forever etched in stone, and it's not going to be forgotten. His legacy will live on forever.
And the cool thing about the story you just shared, Sid, I mean, he and Cal actually were able to patch things up. Thank goodness, because I think
good.
They had their battles in the 90s when both Temple and UMass, remember, Calipari led UMass from the bottom up back in the early to mid 90s. Those are some really great teams, some quality teams. He played some great games during that 2-3 year stretch. He went from Chaney State, which is a small school right outside Philadelphia. It wasn't named after him. I know I know some people kind of teased him about that, but no, that was not, the school was not named after him. Got to Temple back in the early 80s, kind of revitalized that program. over 500, after the first year to kind of got that team going, and they made the postseason tournament in some way. Like we said, it's unfortunate that they never made the Final Four, but he definitely left a mark in that program. And they're still trying to find a way. I think they've got one of his players now, coach, if I'm not mistaken. I'll look that up. But yeah, I mean, look, Temple, I'm sure they're, our thoughts and prayers go out to him, his family, and the Temple community.
Yes, and John Chaney reached the Elite Eight 3 times in 1991, 1993, and then for the last time in 1999.
And
so they came close a couple of times.
Yeah, Aaron McKee is now the coach there. He played for John Chaney in the early 90s. I'm sure he's feeling it right now. I think this is his first year there, if I'm not mistaken, at Temple. I think he just got there, so I don't know if this is his first or second year, but they're still trying to find that. They're still trying to find what made it's so special, and hopefully he can bring that.
Yeah, hopefully he can. Before we close out, Lakeena, baseball news in our backyard. The Chicago Cubs have signed outfielder Joc Pederson from the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, on paper, it looks like it's going to be a very good outfield defensively. You have Jay Hay, a.k.a. Jason Hayward, in right, Ian Happ at center, and Pederson in left field. But offensively, I think this is going to be, I'm not going to say a problem, but it's going to be a challenge. Do you like this addition for the Northsiders as they continue to shed payroll and field, I'm using air quotes for those listening exclusively on the podcast, field a competitive team?
Yeah, I think Jed Hoyer thinks that that division, that NL Central, is still there for the taking, and in some weird way, he's actually right. Because if you think about it, I mean, I know Adam Wainwright's back with the Cardinals, but do they really scare you? I mean, they lost one of the top closers, and do they scare you? Not really. I mean, Milwaukee, we'll see where Milwaukee is. I mean, but they're sort of trying to show they're starting to rebuild too. Maybe Cincy can kind of break through and be the class of that division. Pittsburgh, I mean, they're still kind of trying to find their way too. I know they made some moves, but it hasn't panned out. So looking at them, I mean, I know some people said maybe Schwarber, because Pederson is about $2-3 million cheaper than what you could have gotten had a Schwarber had Schwarber stayed. So I think it's all about payroll, and I think from what I've read that they are kind of opening the books a little bit to sort of like field a competitive team, or perhaps maybe contend in the division, because that division, I think, no really scares me in that division. Maybe Cincy, but that's about it.
Yeah, like you mentioned, St. Louis is always there. Of course, they lost to the Padres in the opening series last year in the playoffs. Cincinnati got back to the playoffs for the first time in a long time last year. They lost to Atlanta in that wild card series. So Milwaukee, you think they'll be back? Well, I'm not sure. Pittsburgh, they still at the bottom. The Cubs, if you don't get off to a good start, there's a couple players that may be gone. Is maybe one in particular sooner rather than later, i.e. Chris Bryant, and maybe i.e. Wilson Contreras. Both their names have been on the trading block these last couple of off seasons. Looks like it may be different this go around. If not now, definitely by the trade deadline, especially if the Cubs are not in serious contention for a playoff spot by that time. Could be another white flag part 2 in Chicago. We shall see.
Could be very interesting season for the Cubs. What about what Bob Nightingale said about the White Sox? Said supposedly that the checkbook's closed, that they're tapped out. I mean, do you believe any of that?
Do I believe that the checkbook is closed? Yes. Do I believe they're tapped out? No. Here's the thing for the White Sox. Expectations at an all-time high. We'll get into this as the weeks go along, as spring training will open up less than a month here. The White Sox, they did all they could to field a team that could win now. The question is, what's the chemistry going to be like? How long will it take for the group to come together? And how will Tony La Russa manage this group? That's the question right now. Who's going to fill out that starting rotation? Who's going to be your fifth starter? Will it be Michael Kopech, or will he start the season in the minors?
Yeah, that's going to be very interesting to see what happens in that front. Are they going to try for a Trevor Bauer? I know that I know that the Mets, they're going to try and make a play for him. I'm sure the Yankees are trying to make a play for him too. I don't know what their cap situation is, but maybe the Dodgers too. So we'll just have to wait and see what they do.
Yeah, it's a wait and see game. Real quick before we close out, Lakeena, going back to the NBA, I don't think we got into this. Of course, the week off will be during the first week in March, and of course, the opening for the All-Star game balloting has started already as this past Thursday. Of course, Dwayne Wade, former NBA player, future Hall of Famer, Chicago's very own. He said on Twitter the other day that this is the year that Zach LaVine should be an All-Star. First of all, Lakeena, do you think an All-Star game should be played this year? And number two, I don't think it's going to be any fans regardless. So do you think an All-Star game should be played? If so, it looks like the proceeds of that will go to HBCUs, which is a good idea. But here's the thing, and I think it's a concern for everybody. Of course, it's a concern for the NBA for sure. You have players traveling all over the country. Some of the games are going to be played in Atlanta, I believe.
Yeah.
Heaven forbid something happens to even one player. Is it worth it? I get the idea. I'm behind the idea. And I think they'll keep the rules the same as they were here in Chicago last year, where you got that classic finish by Anthony Davis hitting that game-winning free throw. But I'm kind of in between on this. I know it's going to be another money grabber for the league. Like I said, I don't know that there's going to be fans in there because, let's be honest, all All-Star games are fan events. Of course, you're not going to have all the extra stuff around it. Okay. But it's between a rock and a hard place right now. If they can pull it off and nothing happens, everything you do, you're taking a chance, okay? But
yeah,
I'm between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, you're very flummoxed. I've never seen you so flummoxed, when we talked about this. But look, I don't think they're gonna do it. I don't think they want to take the chance, especially with this new COVID variant going around, all the different variants and stuff like that. I don't know if they're gonna want to risk it. They may try to be creative, do something interesting where maybe they'll do trivia, or maybe they'll do, try to do the horse like ESPN did, when this whole pandemic started. But I don't think they're gonna find a way to try to mimic something. But I don't see a lot of teams are gonna risk their guys going to Atlanta where the restrictions are kind of meh.
Right. I know the Hawks have let some fans in already. I know there were 8,000 there the other night against Brooklyn. So hopefully, I know the league has thought of it. Like I said, voting has opened. So it looks like there may be something down the road. If it's not a game, like you said, Lakeena, they can be creative with other events. I know this joke called the Pro Bowl will take place this weekend. They're doing some activities. I'm using air quotes here. So it's really going to be interesting these next few weeks on what the NBA does here.
Yeah, they'll definitely. I don't think of something because I don't think Adam Silver wants to take a chance on doing like a full-fledged game. I just don't see, especially with COVID cases still going up in a lot of states. A lot of states are still very, very restricted when it comes to travel. So I just don't see them doing an actual game. You'll find something creative to do if you want to do proceeds to HBCUs and stuff like that. Hey, fine. But there are other ways they can do it. They can be creative.
Yeah, like I said, it's going to be interesting to see what the league does here in the next few weeks. It's been another fun-filled episode, Lakeena. Like I said, I'm looking forward to a whole lot of basketball this weekend, and it should be fun.
Yeah, same here. Doing a lot of catch up on some college hoops too, and also pro as well. Like I said, there's no football, so. And I also want to clean up real quick the Big Five from Philly: LaSalle, Penn, Villanova, St. Joe's, and Temple. I forgot St. Joe's. We haven't seen St. Joe's. They've actually been okay, but they haven't been very good lately. So that's probably why I forgot about them. But I want to clean up there for the good folks over at St. Joe's.
And also, too, real quick, RIP to Cicely Tyson. She passed away on Thursday at the age of 96. She was a Tony Award winner, also award-winning actress. She's been in a lot of black movies. She plays Coretta Scott King. We all remember that growing up in the 80s. She played Harriet Tubman as well. I remember seeing her the last time I saw her on screen, she was in the big Tyler Perry's family reunion many years ago. So she had a passionate speech in that movie as well. So Cicely Tyson, she will be missed. She was a legendary actress. She was a civil rights activist as well. She did great things both on and off screen. She was one of the pioneers for Black actresses at that time. You think of Hattie McDaniel before her, and so she paved the way for everybody working in the entertainment field today.
Well, yeah, she stayed working until the end, so you got
Yeah.
Gotta give her props for that. 96, what a legend.
Mm-hmm.
Also, too, we forgot to mention on a previous pod, Larry King passed away.
Mm-hmm.
He was a big sports fan, of course. He epitomized, interviews and stuff, and in those, in those instances too. I know he was a big sports fan, particularly a big baseball fan. I'm glad he got a chance to see. He was a big, Dodgers fan, so I'm glad he got to see the Dodgers win another World Series. So I think he might have been a Yankees fan too. So he was there to, I think he interviewed a lot of, activists and actors and athletes. Of course, he was around them a lot. So rest in peace to him as well. Also, Cloris Leachman, another, Oscar winner, 8-time Emmy winner. I mean, just, another, she was a pioneer too in working in Hollywood from start to finish. My mom said she was doing a streaming series, last year. So she was working until the end too. So lots of great people these last couple of weeks. And that's how.
Yeah, like I said, 2020 is carried over to 2021, but like you mentioned, 2021 hopefully is the year of change. So let's just be appreciative of what we have and do what we need to do to live our best lives and leave a legacy. So on that note, you can find yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keenan McGee on Twitter and at Keenan_McGee on the IG.
Also, real quick before we close out, Sekou Smith of NBA TV, he passed away early this week of related to the COVID virus. Of course, myself, along with Kenneth Davis and Damon Sproul, Kyle Means as well. We had him on the show a few years ago. He was a passionate guy covering the NBA and the whole sport of basketball in particular. He will be missed. So RIP to Sekou Smith as well as to his family during this difficult time. Also, you could catch our podcast, Second City Sports, along with the other podcast programming for War Media by simply going to our website at weareregalradio.com. That's WEAREREGAL radio.com. You can also check out all of our articles on the website as well, due to sports, culture, and other fun stuff there as well. Also, you can go to War on Anchor, which kicks you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and that iHeartRadio app. Just typing in that search engine box, War on Anchor, WARR on Anchor. And we're also on YouTube at War Media, a.k.a. War Media. That's WARR Media. My brain's just freezing up on me. You can find us there on YouTube. Like, comment, share, subscribe. You can not only listen to us, but watch us do our thing. Thank you for your support in advance.
Absolutely. So for Sid, I'm Lakeena. You guys be careful out there. There's some more snow headed our way here in the Chicago region. Also, wash your hands, wear your mask, keep your distance. So for Sid, I'm Lakeena. This is Second City Sports, Zoom style, and we'll see you on Monday.
Till next time, ha.